My son raised his hand in a salute and held it, and for the longest 7 seconds of my life, the guard at the gate did not move, and I thought my heart would break in front of every camera on the forecourt. Tommy was 9. He was sitting in his wheelchair at the foot of the iron rail, one mitten on the chrome wheel, the other lifted with the flat of his small palm, angled exactly the way he had practiced in front of the bathroom mirror for 3 weeks. He had been told that the guard would not salute back. He had been told, and he had told himself, and he had still asked to come. My name is Margaret Ainsworth. The guard at the gate that morning was Corporal Alaric Penn, of the Foot Guard of the House of Marchwood, though I did not learn his name until later. This is what happened on the cobblestones in front of the Marchwood gate on the 2nd Saturday of October, in the gold light of the late morning, when the state procession had just gone past, and the crowd was thinning, and my son got his wish. The wish was simple. He had wanted, for as long as he had known the word, to stand at attention beside a royal guard. The illness in his blood had taken away the standing 2 years before, so the wish had folded itself, the way wishes do for sick children, into something he could still do. He would go to the palace gate. He would sit beside the post in his chair. He would raise the cleanest salute he could and hold it, and he would not cry if the guard did not look down. The not crying was the part he had practiced hardest. The medal lay across his lap on its red ribbon. It was a small bronze disc, smaller than a coin, the kind the charity gives to the children who finish the 10-meter wheel of the autumn fundraiser. Tommy had finished his 10 meters in the courtyard of the children's ward in August, with his oxygen line clipped to the back of the chair and his older sister steering, and he had cried for 30 seconds at the finish line and then asked, very politely, if he could please keep the medal pinned to his pillow. He had decided 2 nights before the gate that he would give the medal to the guard. He had wrapped it in a square of white tissue paper from the gift shop. It was in the breast pocket of his jacket as we rolled up to the cobbles. The procession had finished its turn at the upper gate 20 minutes earlier, and the household carriage had gone through. The crowd had begun to drift toward the park. The forecourt was still busy, but it was no longer packed. There were perhaps 200 people along the outer rail, most of them with phones out, some of them looking at us and some at the tall figures of the 2 guards on the inner cordon. The cordon was set 6 feet back from the gate. Tommy's chair was outside it. The guards were inside it. That was the geometry of the morning. Corporal Penn was the right hand of the 2. He was perhaps 26. He was tall under the bearskin, and he was perfectly still in the way these men are still, which is not the stillness of a statue, but the stillness of a man whose body has agreed, hour after hour, not to move because the post has asked him not to. His white gloves were crossed on the front of his rifle. The brass buttons of his tunic threw small, bright squares of the gold morning back at us. He did not look at the crowd. He did not look at me. He did not look at Tommy. He looked at a point on the far wall of the forecourt, and he held it there. I steered the chair to within 4 feet of the inner cordon. I locked the brakes. I knelt down next to Tommy, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I leaned into his ear. "You sure?" I said. He nodded once. His chin was up. He had practiced the chin too. "Whenever you're ready, sweetheart." He waited for the breath to come back. The breath came slower in those weeks than it had in the summer, and he had to take it in 3 small sips before any one sentence. He took the 3 sips. He raised his right hand. He laid the 4 fingers flat. He angled the wrist exactly the way the picture on the bathroom mirror had angled it. He brought the edge of his small palm to the brim of his cap, and he held it there. Corporal Penn did not move. I had told myself I would not count. I counted anyway. 1, 2, 3. Tommy's arm was thin and the holding was not free. By 4, his elbow was trembling. By 5, his whole shoulder. By 6, I could feel my own jaw lock against the thing I was not going to say. By 7, I had decided that I would lift his hand down for him and tell him in the car that the guard had seen it. That the guard had seen it in the way they all see, with the corners of their eyes, the way the manual says they must. And then Corporal Penn moved. He did not move quickly. He moved the way these men do everything, the way water moves under thin ice when the spring comes, slowly enough that you do not see the moment the surface breaks. His right glove came off the rifle. His left followed. The rifle came down off port arms and came to rest grounded butt to the cobblestone in the exact position the manual gives for a halted post. He set the weapon. He squared his shoulders. He lowered himself. He knelt. He went all the way down. He went down on one knee and then on the other, on the dressed wool of his trousers on the cold stone, and he brought himself to eye level with my son. He squared his bearskin so the brim sat clean across his brow. He brought his right hand up to its place. He returned the salute. I have replayed it 10,000 times. I will replay it 10,000 more. He held the salute exactly as long as Tommy had held his. He did not cut it short out of pity. He did not extend it for the cameras. He matched it second for second, the way one soldier matches another, and when Tommy's hand came down and Tommy's hand came down slowly, because Tommy had not been ready for him to answer at all, Corporal Penn's hand came down at the same speed. The two hands fell together. Then the corporal spoke. His voice was very low. It was meant for my son and for nobody else, and most of the crowd did not hear it. I heard it because I had my hand on Tommy's shoulder and my ear was a foot from the corporal's chin. "That was a fine salute, sir," he said. Tommy did not answer. He could not. His breath had gone into the front of his jacket and would not come out for a moment. The corporal waited. He did not rush him. After a long count, Tommy got the breath out, and he reached into his breast pocket, and he brought out the small square of tissue paper. He held it out across the velvet rope. "This is for you," he said. The corporal took the tissue paper. He took it the way you take a sealed envelope from a senior officer, with both white gloves, balanced flat across the palms. He unfolded the tissue. The metal lay in the middle of it, dark bronze, the ribbon a little creased from being in the pocket. He looked at it for a count of 3. Then he looked at Tommy. "This is your medal, sir. I want you to have it. I cannot wear it on the post." He said this carefully, as if he were apologizing. "It is against the dress code, but I will carry it in my breast pocket every day I stand for as long as I serve. Do I have your permission to do that?" Tommy nodded. He nodded twice. He could not get any words past whatever had come up into his throat. The corporal folded the tissue back around the medal. He slid it into the inside pocket of his tunic, just over his heart, and patted the place once with the flat of his glove, so my son could see exactly where it had gone. Then he reached into his own breast pocket. He took out his right glove. He had been wearing only the left for a moment, I realized. He had stripped the right at some point during the kneel without my noticing. He held the glove out across the rope. "This is mine," he said. "I'd like you to have it. Will you take it?" Tommy took the glove. He held it in both hands like a bird. He could not speak. He sat there with the white glove and the breath that came in 3 sips and the gold of the morning on his face, and his eyes were as wide as I had seen them in 2 years. The corporal stood. He stood the way he had knelt, slowly, in stages, smoothing the wool of his trousers, taking up the rifle, raising it back to port arms. He returned to the height the bearskin made him. He looked down once more at my son. He spoke loud enough this time for the second guardsman to hear, because what came next he wanted on the record. "Sir," he said to Tommy, "would you do me the honor of marching the post with me, 1 length, from this gate to that stone and back?" He pointed with his chin to a corner of the forecourt 20 paces away where the cobble met the gilded rail. It was no further than that. Tommy looked at me. I will not pretend that I had words. I unlocked the brakes of the chair. The corporal stepped through the cordon. He stepped through it. The rope lifted by the second guardsman without a word, who had understood before I had what was happening. And he came around to the side of the chair, and he set his right white-gloved hand on the push handle, and his left on his rifle, and he looked once down the line at his fellow guardsman, and the fellow guardsman gave him the smallest nod a man can give. I want to be careful here, because I think this is the part the cameras did not understand and the part that mattered most. The corporal did not push the chair. I pushed the chair. He walked beside it. He matched the chair's pace exactly, which is the pace of an arm that is sick and a hand that is on a wheel rim that is cold, which is a very slow pace, slower than a man walks normally, slower than a royal guard has ever walked in his life on duty. He did not vary his pace by an inch. He carried the rifle at port arms. He kept his eyes forward. He marched the way he had been trained to march, except at the speed of my son, and to the side of my son, so that what the forecourt saw, what the 200 phones saw, was a royal guard escorting a small boy in a wheelchair down a length of cobblestone at the speed of the boy. 20 paces. He turned at the stone in the corner with the exact regulation half-step. He turned the chair with me at the same half-step. He marched the 20 paces back. When we reached the post, he halted. I halted. He came to attention beside the chair. He saluted my son one last time and held it and brought it down on Tommy's count of 3, which Tommy could not say out loud but which Tommy counted with his fingers on his lap so the corporal could see. Then the corporal stepped back through the cordon. The rope dropped behind him. He took his place on the right-hand post. He raised the rifle. He set his eyes on the same point on the far wall he had been holding before. He became, again, the figure he had been when we arrived. The forecourt was silent. I do not think I had heard a forecourt that silent before. The second guardsman, who had not moved through any of this, still did not move. Somewhere along the outer rail an older woman was crying, audibly, the way women of 70 cry, with no shame and no attempt to muffle it. The phone stayed up. I do not know what I said. I think I said thank you very quietly 3 or 4 times, none of them loud enough to reach the corporal across the rope. He gave no sign of hearing. I turned the chair. I wheeled my son back toward the outer gate and the car. Tommy held the white glove against his chest with both hands the whole way. We had been told before we came that the captain of the foot guard would be at the duty office that morning, and that he had been informed of our visit, and that he had given no instruction beyond the standard one, which is that the cordon holds and the guards do not speak. I had taken that to mean a refusal. I had taken it to mean, the boy may sit by the gate and salute and the guard may not respond, and we will be polite about it but we will not break the post. What I learned later was that the captain had been standing at the second-floor window above the gate for the entire 7 seconds. Tommy held his salute. What I learned was that the captain had watched the kneel and the salute returned, and the medal pocketed, and the glove given, and the 20 paces walked and the 20 paces back, and that he had not moved from the window, and that when his adjutant had come up the stair behind him at the end of it, holding the duty book and a pen, ready to write the breach, the captain had turned to him and said one sentence. I have it from the adjutant, who told it to me at the door of the duty office an hour later when I had gone back to ask, very carefully, whether the corporal was in trouble. The captain had said, "Write nothing, he stood the post." That was the whole of it, he stood the post. The captain meant it the way the regiment means everything exactly and with no second meaning. To kneel beside a sick boy and return his salute and walk 20 paces of cobblestone at the pace of his wheel was, in the captain's view, not a breach of the post. It was the post. It was what the post had always been for. It was the thing every other duty in the manual was the scaffolding around. The cordon held. The throne held. The line of honor that the regiment is the visible edge of had, in that 7 seconds and that kneel and those 40 paces, become the thing it is meant to be, which is the thing that bends exactly once for the smallest and the bravest of those it serves, and then straightens and goes on. I will tell you the rest because you should know it. Tommy lived another 4 months. He carried the corporal's white glove in the bedside drawer of his hospital room and he asked, on the bad nights, to hold it. He asked me, on a Wednesday in February, whether the corporal still had the medal in his pocket. I drove to the gate the next morning. I waited for the changing of the post. I caught the eye of an officer of the household at the inner door, an officer I did not know, who had not been there in October, and I told him my name and my son's name and the date in October when the salute had been returned. He went inside the gate. He came back 12 minutes later. He gave me a small folded square of cream paper. The note was in a neat blue hand. It said, "The medal is in my pocket today. It was in my pocket yesterday. It will be in my pocket tomorrow. Please tell your son. A. Penn Corp." I gave the note to Tommy that night. He read it twice and folded it back along the creases and put it under his pillow with the glove. He went asleep smiling, which had become a rare thing. He died 8 days later peacefully at 4 in the morning, with my hand in his and his sister's in his other, and the glove on the bed beside him, and the note under his head. I went back to the gate one more time 3 weeks after. The corporal was on the right-hand post. I stood at the outer rail. I did not approach the cordon. I waited until I caught the very edge of his sight line, and I lifted my hand once. I do not know if he saw me. I do not know if I needed him to. The hand I lifted was small. The hand I lifted was the hand my son had lifted at the salute, and held for 7 seconds in the cold gold light of the second Saturday of October at the gate of the house of Marchwood, when a man in a red tunic and a tall black bearskin knelt down on the cobblestone in front of a wheelchair and returned a 9-year-old boy's salute, and took his medal, and gave him a glove, and marched 20 paces beside him at the pace of a sick child's wheel, and then stepped back through the rope and stood the post again, and never, by the smallest sign or motion, indicated to any camera or any officer or any passing dignitary that anything had changed at all. But something had changed. It had changed for Tommy. It had changed for the older woman crying at the rail. It had changed for the 200 who filmed it, and for the thousands more who watched it on their phones in the days after. And I think, though he would never say it, it had changed for the corporal, who carried a small bronze medal in the inside pocket of his tunic every day he stood, and who, if he is still standing the post now, is standing it with that medal still over his heart, every morning in the gold light of the gate, for the boy who held a salute for 7 seconds and would not let his hand come down until the man inside the discipline finally answered. The man inside the discipline answered. That is the whole of the story. The line on the cobblestone bent for the smallest of those it serves exactly once and then straightened, and the post went on. The throne is not a man, and it is not a building. The throne is a line on a cobblestone, and on one gold Saturday in October that line knelt.